It is 7:08. It's so late. I'm going to call the Wednesday, November 30th, 2022 meeting of the Westborough Public Library Board of Trustees to order. Pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2020, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as the members of the public, may access the meeting in person or through virtual means. A person in attendance will be at the top floor of the meeting room located at 55 West Main Street. It's possible that some or all members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance as noted above or emailing their questions to the library trustees. This meeting is currently being recorded. Okay. It's 7 o'clock. Do we have any members of the public forum? Did anyone else to put the link? No. All right. So seeing no public forum, we will move to the secretary's report, which is approval of October minutes. For 5 minutes, right?
There was a lot of conversation last time.
Yeah.
So I hope I captured what I needed to capture.
That's fine, Marie.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Do you have any idea what this is, Deb, please?
Make a motion to approve October minutes.
I'll second.
All right. I guess we'll just go around roll call. We'll start with you, Ed.
Yeah.
Deb.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Thank you. Dot. Approval for October minutes. Dot, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can't see you. I've got the Zoom screen on and no pictures of anybody or me.
Okay.
Illinois.
We're taking a vote on the approval of October minutes.
Those are good. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Carolyn,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Okay. And myself is a yes. Bill is not here. Excellent. All right, and that moves us along to the treasurer's report.
And while it shows that we're a little behind in our materials, we're not, because all this stuff came today. We are right on track.
Perfect.
I've already been in. I'm in. They can hear me and I can hear them, but I've got this test pattern.
Anybody have any questions on treasurer's report?
Are we okay on office equipment? Is there anything else?
That was it. Thank you.
You know, we always try and keep a little in reserve, but we've purchased
Purchase the computers.
the computers that we intended to purchase, yes.
So the little bit extra helps if we need, like, my desk chair is falling apart.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah,
it
no,
helps for little stuff, you
I
know.
have no
one-off
complaints
stuff like
about
that.
having that in reserve. But how about the miscellaneous services computers?
That's all of our CW Mars expenditures
Yeah.
are
Did they spring something on you or?
It was higher than we thought, right?
Yeah,
there are things that have gone up quite a bit. Yeah. Things that come to mind. A lot of the software that we're buying now, they've gone up like 25% over last year's.
It's hard to blame that on supply chain.
Accident, yeah.
I know,
Right,
I
it's
know.
true.
That's about, Accident went up like $500. And again, not
Yeah.
anticipate, I mean, there's no way to anticipate
yeah.
that
Yeah.
at all.
that's the system we use for our meeting room reservations and our online calendar.
See,
I'll move to approve if you're ready for that.
yeah, I'm ready for
I'll move to approve
it.
the minutes.
Second. Okay, so take a vote. Start with Finn this time. Kate? She's on mute. So we'll jump to Dot. Approval of, report. Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
yes.
Yes.
Kate? We're gonna come back. Ed?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Last chance, Kate. Oh, wait, I see her.
Yes, sorry. Oh, I didn't,
Thank you, no worries. Good stuff, okay. That brings us to Friends update. Do we have one? I do not.
All that I have is, they only made about maybe $600 or $700 on the last book sale, but it was indoors and
Yeah,
it was only Saturday. And they're gonna be having their annual meeting January 31st.
okay. So I would say January 31st. For better or worse, no, for better, actually, I'm going to say. All this controversy around the library vote has brought a lot of library supporters forward. So when people are like, what can I do? We can also push out that, hey, the Friends are having a meeting on January 31st. Let's see if we can take some of this energy about the library and push it towards some of the Friends too. So it might be a good time to say, hey, we know you love the library, so let's do this.
Can I ask a question about the donation stuff that's down there? Does anyone go, I don't know how often that they're coming in to, but I'm sure you've seen that there were like bags of puzzles or games that crap. Is that stuff thrown? I mean, there's no chance to go through stuff like that. Is
No.
that stuff thrown out before someone can come in and say, hold off, wait?
We have been trying to intercept that, and
Good,
they,
okay, that's all.
they
Okay.
wanted to advertise that they accept puzzles. And they got that, somebody came up and went right to Sarah and said, hey, can you add this to the Friends page? And she was like, oh, sure, and she did. And when I heard about that, I went back in and took it right off and told her, no, we're not advertising that. I had already talked to Wendy about it, like, no puzzles, because one person already came who bought a puzzle at a book sale and it was incomplete, and they were mad and wanted their $1 back.
Yeah,
And like,
It's one
we
thing
don't
if
have the space
You
for the
don't have a
books.
space for, but if it's shrink wrap, that's one thing, but anything open
Yeah.
that people are touching, like, no.
No.
So I'm glad to hear that stuff is being interesting.
Cliff has been emptying the bins upstairs every day.
Good.
Just to keep that area clean and neat, and so it doesn't pile up. And so if he sees stuff like that, he just tosses it.
sounds good. Foundation. I do not know foundations update. We'd like to see if we can touch base with Maureen and Ed, Jim,
Jim.
before the next town meeting, to see if they will.
I talked with Maureen on the phone right after the turkey trot. And I told her that we really need them to, I wanted to ask her, can I say at town meeting, can we say in our presentation that they have committed to raising $1 million
Yeah,
towards the project? And she said, absolutely, because that is totally what we agreed to, that we were gonna raise at least $1 million.
Yeah.
And I told her I didn't want to put it in the presentation without talking to her about it first. And I asked her, would she or Jim be willing to stand up at the mic and say that? Because it's one thing for me to say it, or you to say it, but it's different coming from them. And she said she did not want to speak because of Ian, and that was before Ian voted no, but she would talk to Jim and make sure that he's prepared and ready to speak.
he spoke last time, so I can
He
imagine
spoke,
he
and I
was-
told her that
Right.
he spoke last time, but it wasn't really clear. And we just need the message to be stated clearly that the foundation is committed to fundraising.
Right.
What is Jim's?
Jim Ball
Jim
is
Ball.
the co-chair of the foundation.
JIMBALL.
ALL. Sounds good.
And so they've committed to raising at least $1 million. And the
Mhm.
foundation told you, yes, that you can say that at town meeting.
Yes.
And Jim Ball will hopefully be speaking at town meeting.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so that brings.
You
any other-
should probably confirm that with Jim Ball himself rather than through Maureen, just saying, you know.
Yeah.
Might be
Maureen
worth-
said she
but
would-
it might be worth shooting him an email to confirm that.
Yep, that's why I said we'd reach out to the two of them.
What is Maureen's last name again?
Johnson.
Just forgot.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Anything else on the foundation? All right, we will follow up on that. And I will let you know if for some reason I hear that that plan is different. But that's what we know as of now, and I'll try to confirm that with them. Brings us to library building project. Special town meeting, December 10th.
9 a.m., that's cool.
9 a.m. We, if everyone doesn't know, we are Articles 1 and 2. That's fantastic. There will be the typical pre-stuff, but not like the town update, so it will be much shorter. John Arnold will read something about the process and what brought us there that day. So hopefully that will cut off some of the discussion about the unfairness of why we're there, or the perceived unfairness of why we're there. Any,
Are we talking about the library building project? Or are we talking about town meeting?
well,
I just have a question.
go for it.
So, do you know, either one of you, if people have to register, they have to, if they're going to speak, do they have to give John a heads up, or can anyone can present?
No, they-
Anyone can speak at the microphone, but if they want
Yes.
to, trying to present,
That's.
they have to write that in writing 10 days ahead of time, I think,
10 days.
and get his approval
Okay.
to be like, have an official
Yeah.
little presentation. Anyone can get up at the mic and speak.
Yeah.
And if they're a non-resident, there's a form that they have to fill out, and we have to, town meeting has to admit them to the meeting. So I will submit forms as a group from Vertex, Fontaine, and LPA,
What is the deadline for that? It's tomorrow's the first.
like 10 minutes before the meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, John just needs to know ahead of time who's gonna be there, so he can read them, and, because he'll make the motion to admit them to the meeting.
So who are you submitting the paperwork for?
For Vertex, Fontaine, and LPA.
So,
Representatives of those companies.
Yeah, they'll fill out the forms and send them to me, and then I'll send them to John all in one email, so that he doesn't have to get 7 different emails from people.
can we also talk to John about setting the chairs up like they had last time for the
Yeah.
seal committee and invite our, like, publicly invite our construction team to come down and sit there? And then I think library building committee, and I was gonna bring this up at our next meeting, should be in the first 2 rows, so that they're all together.
Makes sense to me.
Hmm?
That makes sense to me.
Is the presentation going to reflect the changes that were talked about in the design, the breakdown of costs?
That is a roughly $1.5 million production.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Did you actually want to speak to that? 'Cause I'm not sure everyone is aware of that.
Okay, so the background on this is the construction team went back and did what they call value engineering to see what they could get out of the cost. And they found roughly $1.5 million in cost reductions driven by changing the building cladding from something that was copper clad, to something that was aluminum, painted aluminum. And by changing the screen, there's a visual screen that goes around the air conditioning stuff on the roof, or there will be, and changing something about the way that is built. So those changes can be made without any effect on the library programming, and with, I'd say, little or no effect on the aesthetics. And a lot of it is driven really by just having to go back and look at some of the costs of these things have skyrocketed. since before. Some of it's just value engineering, that they need the extra time to get through, and we would get that in the design process at some point anyway. So the building committee discussed this at some length, and decided or recommended that when we, at the town meeting, the motion we bring will reflect the reduced cost due to that. And we'll explain why and how that came to be in the presentation. So it's instead of 36 and a half, it's 37. I forget. I've been in what the numbers are. It's one and a half less.
Current number is 35.5, I believe, or close to it.
I'll tell you the number in just a second so we can have it for the minutes.
But you can't change the number in the warrant.
Can't change the number in the
The
warrant.
number of the warrant is what it is,
It
but
is,
the
yeah.
motion we make can be different. We actually talked to John Arnold about that early on, and he has no objection to reducing the cost. And there's limits on what he allows for us changing in the language in the warrant. But-
Right, and I just remembered what he said about that was making a motion with a lower number is allowed because people are coming expecting it to be at the 36.9 million. If it's less, then it's not a problem. If it was more, that would be a problem, because if it was higher, people might be more interested in coming and it would cause other problems. So, but the new number is 35,161,877.
35,161.
35,161,877.
Is there also I don't want to say contingency plan, but a dialogue or a statement in place if a motion is put on the floor to reduce that amount further? Like an arbitrary number of, I make a motion for 25 million to be approved. Not that that would happen, but any chance that someone does make a motion to reduce the amount.
There's not really only one, I'll say reasonable, one change that we could propose that would not throw us out of the
That's
NBLC grant.
yeah.
And that is the current plan, there's a porch on the first floor and then the sort of 3-4 season children's room on the second floor. Those are not required by the NBLC, although they're heavily recommended. And we could, in theory, remove those without losing the grant. But the estimated cost savings is only, he says, only about 600,000. So not enough to make a really big dent, in our opinion, compared to the value of having these things that people like would be unique for our library and so on. If somebody tries to take more out than that, and we've heard sort of arbitrary numbers coming up from the school. That I think
That's what I'm asking.
that we just have to thought out, because if we do that, we lose the grant.
goes away.
And
But I'm just thinking like on the fly, like that if someone does throw a number that we know is going to kick the grant,
Answer is just.
then what do we do? And we're gonna lose the grant, but if the motion's brought up that the town,
so that would come as an amendment to our motion, and that amendment would have to be voted.
Okay,
And I imagine it's a majority vote to win that amendment. Yeah.
When there's an amendment, yes.
it's a majority vote, but if that amendment is some miraculous reason passed, then what do we do? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because we know that that's gonna take the grant off the table.
And the town would know that too.
Again, I don't think.
And there's nothing we can do other
Yeah.
than respond
Yeah.
verbally to that, being that,
Yeah,
one, the project that we're voting on, we would lose the grant and we would not be,
Yeah.
we could not execute this project at any budget other than that, because then we would have to redraw the plan.
Well, if, I guess, I can see two things we could do. One would be, and I don't even know if this is possible, quote, not take the money. We
No,
just sit in an
that
account
is
there or something.
exactly, yeah. that's-
And the other would be say, okay, would be take that as a budget for a different design thing. And I don't know that I like that second plan, but I don't think that's gonna come up. Yeah.
Do it.
It's not-
Because you're like 24 million for what? There's no plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we would
And
have to go back
so-
and start the plan and say, well, here's what what do we do with 24 million?
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
design it out. And it would be,
our, like, I mean, our contracts with,
oh yeah, those would help.
it
We
would
would,
like almost invalidate our contracts because
It
all
would.
these people were hired to do this
yeah,
project.
I think it would. And we'd have to, the whole scope would change because we wouldn't be
The whole
building the
scope would
same
change,
thing. We
right,
can't
and
build the
what
same
would
thing for that much.
AFC
money.
be voting on, like, because they're voting on nothing? I mean, to
Well,
have an
well,
arbitrary number.
Yeah.
thrown out.
There's no telling what the town meeting vote
Right,
would
but
be.
someone very well could do it. They've done in the past, with, like I said, the
Someone,
school
it
budgets,
wouldn't
they've been
surprise me
like,
if
let's
it's,
take it down by 10%.
if that comes to the vote. It would surprise me if it gets a majority because, I mean, if they get a majority for that, they're not gonna, we're not gonna get a 2/3 majority for the project
Right.
anyway, so one way or another. I
Right,
guess.
right,
So, at least that's how it works out in my mind.
Agreed. Other library building committee things, the library building committee has been working on a FAQ to put out before project, it's almost done, to help answer some of the questions that came up and address the questions and concerns that people have had ahead of time. And so that'll get pushed out in various ways.
Yeah.
That's the bulk of what the library
So
building committee is.
How is that gonna be put out?
Oh, so it's going, what do we say? Actually,
It
it's
will
on the
get, go on
library
the
website.
webpage, we'll have it printouts in the library and in the town hall for people to pick up.
Did we say to the newspaper? It's going to.
I don't
We
think,
said that.
I don't think we have time to get it in the
Yeah,
paper.
paper, so put out.
And it'll be
in the school
long.
back
Yeah, I don't think
lots.
they would print that anyway.
They might, if they have an article, they might put a link to it, but I don't think, I'm guessing they would
Right.
get one of that.
And then individual emails, everyone get a copy of it and push it out to whoever.
And just an FYI, I talked to Andrea at the MDLC today about the, how quickly we can execute the
Oh, yeah.
contracts after the vote is approved on the 10th. And she is, her exact words were, I'm teeing up your contracts as soon as we hang up the phone, we're going to start teeing them up. And, but all they need is the signed contract and a certified copy of the vote. And she said, I'll even drive out on Monday and get it from you if you have the contract signed. And I was like, you know what? I'll drive it to you. I will take the victory lap around Massachusetts. But I don't know, what I don't know is if the design team would need to vet it with their council before they sign it
Oh, the contract.
or not. So I'm meeting with them Friday for the FAQ. I'll ask them if they need to, if they'll need to vet that, or if I can get it. I will have it ahead of time and I'll send it to everyone as soon as I have it, so that they can hopefully do that if they need to. I don't know if we need to have it vetted by town council,
Probably.
so I can send it
I would at least give them the opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we can get it signed like
Yeah,
very
so
quickly after town meeting, because as soon as we execute the contract and turn it in, you know, sign the contract, have the certified vote, turn it in, they will release our first $1.8 million. So I mentioned to her the rumor that, you know, people talk about on Facebook all the time about, well, if it passes, can we get 200 signatures and have another town meeting to overturn it? And
I ran into one of the opponents was checking out books while I came in, when I came in.
The answer to your question, Maureen, is yes. The other, the other can always keep calling more special town meetings.
Right.
Yeah, that was the impression I had.
And my assumption is that the warrant article that they would propose would be to rescind borrowing authority or borrowing authorization.
I have no idea what they would propose, but
And-
the answer is yes.
But so what Andrea said about that was if that happened and if it was successful, that,
We're on the hook.
well, no, we would have to give the first payment, the $1.8 million back, but it would go back into the state's general coffers,
Yep.
not back into the program. So not
Mhm.
only would we be screwing over Westborough, we would be screwing over some other municipality that would not benefit from that money.
Well,
So,
but if that's what happens, that's what happens. Make sure that that's, so is that the library board commissioners who said that
yes,
is what would happen? Okay.
yes.
The other little piece of information that you all are gonna find out when you go to FinCom on December 5th. I ran into Mike Beretti at the gym earlier this week. And he said that they were advised by whoever the bond people are, whatever the borrowing mechanism is. Originally, we used a 4%. He was told that they now have to use a 4.5% interest rate because of the higher interest rates. So just be aware of that.
Yes,
Yes, and
Okay.
the presentation and our estimated numbers are taking that into account.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you guys knew that.
Thank you.
What she said, I just didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Sure. FinCom was advised by the bond people to use a 4.5% interest rate in their calculations as opposed to the 4% that they calculated out last time. Due to the increase in interest rates.
We've got that information from the town finance director. I believe,
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
Leland has that info.
FinCom vote is Monday.
FinCom vote is Monday. It is unlikely that I am able to be there for that. Catch the end of it, but not the
Yeah.
beginning of it.
Walter, who's on the building committee and also, and is our, the FinCom representative, feels it's unlikely that it will change in our favor. With that, so.
Yeah, definitely anticipating that.
They're meeting on Monday, you said?
Monday the
Yes.
5th.
yeah. Monday night.
Any other points we'd like to discuss about the upcoming special town meeting?
One other sort of our strategy for the actual presentation is we'll have a short 10-minute presentation. And then have additional slides sort of on deck that we can pull up if needed in order to provide accurate information to respond to objections or concerns or whatever.
I know that those from Vertex and let's forget their names. Are they willing to speak
Yes.
as well?
Yeah.
I believe format wise, they have ordered 1,000 clippers. And I believe that's for the auditorium. And if it goes into the gym, they will do hand counting in the gym. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, discussion about library building project or special town meeting? Okay. That brings us to fiscal 2024 budget.
So everyone who's here has print copies. Those of you tuning in at home, hopefully you have the electronic copies that we can kind of go through together. And I want to kind of start off the discussion by telling you that the bottom line on the cover sheet, which is the one called, for those of you at home, called library.xls. The bottom line of 1,236,340 is not our actual request. That number is not in compliance as, for the MDLC, because there's a different way that we're doing our budget requests this year. And I talked to Christy about it, but it took until tonight at 5 for me to get the answer. So further down in your pile, there's an FY24 program improvement request, a PIR form with blue bars across it. We submitted 2 of these. So what we were directed to do was to create a budget that was level service.
3 simple ways
And
to find.
then anything that we were adding to the budget that was new or different, we needed to fill out this form and explain what and why and how much. So in the past, so for example, in the past, if we had someone leave and we wanted to add a couple hours to that position, Lynn would do the calculation, figure out if we had enough money in the current budget to support what we wanted to do. If we did, we would do it, and then we would just carry that cost forward in future budgets.
Right.
Now we have to submit a form. And so we can't add any hours to this year. This would be for next year's budget. So the first one that we asked for additional hours for was we currently have a 21-hour circulation assistant. It was Nancy Engberg's position that she retired from. We wanted to add 3 hours a week to that. And it's also been our effort for the past, I don't know how many years, to get all of our positions in that the budgeted hours were in multiples of 4.
Right.
So we can have people either working a half day or a full day. And we're slowly, like, we're so close, we're like almost there. So this would get us like to that goal, but it also gives us a few additional hours for outreach, which we desperately need. So if we add this request and the next one, which is for $400 for additional overtime for Cliff. But even just adding the first one, that gets us to a budget that is in compliance with MDLC.
Okay, so we're close.
So what Christy explained to me is the budget cover sheet that we have, the 1.2 million plus the 4,000 plus the 401 is our actual request, even though it's not reflected under department request.
That's so weird.
I know it's a whole new process and we're all learning it together at the same time. So it's a little clunky at the moment, but so I just wanted to make that clear that the budget that we will be submitting to MDLC will be in compliance. They haven't told me yes or no whether these are approved, but once the library trustees approve it, I think it would be difficult for them to not approve it. So that's what it is.
So in what way would it not have been in compliance?
Because it doesn't meet our municipal appropriation requirement, which is our budget is required to increase each year by, I want to say it's by 2.5%, but it's not always. You take the average of the last 3 years' budgets and increase it by 1.025%, multiply it by 1.025.
Yeah, okay.
And that is our municipal appropriation requirement for the next year. And this is short by about $2,000.
Okay,
So,
so the MDLC requires the library budget to grow by an average of 2.5% per year.
correct.
Okay. You know, is the town budget going that much?
The town budget is growing
That's
way
what I'm
more than
wondering,
that.
Yeah, that's good, okay.
So the first side of the budget is salary. The union, oh, and that's the other thing also, the union contract is not settled yet. So there will be pay increases of some kind that will bump the salary side higher, most likely, if they settle the contracts before town meeting. And I don't know if that's gonna happen.
This is the March town meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
Christy and Kim didn't know if that was gonna happen or not, so they were saying like, don't count on that. So these numbers on the salary side are using the current rate, not the new rate. Are there any questions or anything you want to discuss about the salary side before we go to expenses?
Do about the union contract
I
negotiation.
know.
Right, right, what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Okay.
Hope we all get paid more. That's
Yes,
all.
exactly.
So if, I'll just go through the lines. And there was not a lot of discussion or pushback on our budget. I will say that from the finance team, from Leah and Christy.
You do
For
such a good job.
for reasons that you will see in a moment. So advertising, we level funded, grounds and building maintenance, 5202, 5202E, and 5203, I just level funded. Those numbers looked like we would be fine to level fund those based on past spending. Office equipment, I decreased by $345. We planned on just replacing fewer computers this year, knowing that we may be moving, but we may not be, so we didn't know. A lot of this is just like, we just don't know. All the travel is level funded, fuel and oil is level funded. So going over onto the back of that page, 5217.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Fuel and oil being
Yeah.
level funded. Are we sure that's gonna cover us with everything?
Where, it depends on how cold it gets, honestly.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
even though it costs more, sometimes we use less and
Yeah. So dues and memberships increased a little bit. That's just projected. Oh, that one is because I upgraded our membership in MLA to platinum because we get a better benefit for that with the number of staff that we have now that are interested in participating in MLA. And we get 5 free memberships for that price. Plus we get a certain number of free passes to the annual conference. So it's gonna save us money in the long run for that. And then there were a couple others that just went up a tiny bit, so. Programs I level funded, office supplies, level funded. And then I did play around a little bit with the materials lines. These 3 lines, the ones that are highlighted, so 5224, 5224E, and 5227 are the ones that have to add up to 15% of the bottom line. They do. So I'm not worried about these. If the salary side goes up significantly because of the union contracts and the addition of the 4,000 that we were putting in, that's not significant, but in any case, if that goes up, I will recalculate and I may add a little bit to these lines if I have to keep us in compliance. But I took 10,000 out of other supplies because we're really not buying as many DVDs and CDs. They're just not circulating as much as they were. So we'll keep money in there to buy audiobooks that are circulating and library of things. And I moved some of that to the next line to 5224E to buy additional ebooks, and that would allow us to add other electronic services, like I listed them here, like Ancestry or Consumer Reports. And our mandatory CW Mars ebook fee is almost $12,000 for next year. So that's included in that materials line. And then 5227, I decreased because I put that 5,000 in 5224E. Just because of magazine and newspaper subscriptions that are not, that are ceasing publication, and taking a little bit out of print books and putting it into electronic. We're not seeing a huge shift because we talked about that when I shared the ARIS report. Our ebook circulation is like going bonkers, but our print book circulation is still really strong. So it's not time to chop that up in it by any means. So then the other three lines on this page are level funded. And if we go over to 5241, the clothing allowance for the custodian, that's union defined. So if that changes, we may have to add a little to that line. And then the last line of the budget decreased. I just went through and checked on all of the subscriptions, costs for renewing domains, mobile printing, like all the different fees, and found some had gone down, which is amazing. And I was able to take some money out of this line because CW Mars, that's the rain that you hear. It's rain on the sunroof. The sunroof. The skylight. Sorry. The CW Mars ebook fee that I was just talking about, that's almost $12,000, doesn't come out of it shouldn't come out of this line. It should come out of the materials line because it's materials. So I moved that out of this line. So, so again, as I said, the finance team didn't really have much to say because almost everything is level funded. And, but I still think that this budget allows us to provide the services that we need to provide. And, you know, it's a comfortable budget for us, and I think we'll be in good shape.
Well done. Looks good.
So if the union contract does happen, it would have to happen before June, so you could put this next year or to get these into it, or how does, what happens?
So typically what happens is if it's not settled in time for town meeting, for the spring town meeting, it would get settled, and then there would be an article at the fall town meeting to pay the union staff retroactively and to add funds to all of the departmental budgets to account for that. So the contract expired
in June of this year.
So I'm really hoping they can settle it because our union staff deserves their pay increases, and I would hate for them to have to wait. Because then if it had to go to the fall town meeting, they'd be like a year and a half past the time that they should have gotten their increases. And
So I
that's
just
not right.
wanted to make sure that, so the key for me there is that the town meeting votes it to be retroactive, and so you're not gonna get stuck holding a budget that won't cover those.
No.
costs. Okay, that's good. So, another sort of theoretical long-term question. You're not gonna have, a lot of your credit costs are not gonna be the same if you move to a temporary facility, I would think. And some of them, the cost of the facility itself at least will be paid out of the project budget.
Right.
So what does that do to this?
How quickly is everything gonna happen?
So we still have a year of design. So I think our timeline is going to get pushed a little bit because we had expected the construction to start in February of 24. And so now I'm thinking it might be a little bit later because we're like
We have at
almost
least
2 months past.
2 months delay since the town meeting.
Yeah.
And so,
So now I'm thinking that we would probably be moving end of 23, beginning of 24. So, and this budget, it's just hard to know. I'm not sure. I know this would be enough to take care of us here, this building, if we ended up giving back money at the end of this of fiscal 24 because we had lower expenses due to temporary site, that's okay. If we needed more, then we would have to go and request a AFC funds transfer to pay any additional extra. But you're right, the cost for the temporary site would be paid out of the
Right, the actual
project.
rental and moving costs, yeah,
Right.
but the operating costs will come out of this.
Right.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, then the other thought is, if, just say hypothetically your costs are lower, then you might not meet that 2.5% increase target from NDLC. Would that be a problem?
No,
Because we love it, right?
yeah, it's what's appropriated by the
Okay.
town,
Okay,
not what's expended.
okay.
That's what allowed us to give money back during COVID and not,
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
which
Yeah.
that's probably not a fair comparison because MBLC relaxed a lot of their regulations about that, but it's what allows us to give back money if we don't spend it.
Something hit the house.
Cool.
It didn't sound like.
Any questions on the budget? So we'll take a motion, we can vote on this tonight, right? We'll take a motion to accept the 2024 budget.
Also move.
And someone's second.
seconded,
Okay, let's take a vote. Karen,
Yes.
Deborah. Yes. Ed,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Carolyn,
Yes.
I was on mute, sorry. Yes.
excellent. Kate
Yes.
and Dot,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for the work you put into that. It's a very strong budget. I'm glad they didn't argue because there's not much to argue. And that brings us.
I would say a special thank you because it's not like you have anything else on your plate.
Seriously.
Well, what I will say about that is why you don't have a written director's report. I apologize. That's like twice in a row, but between the budget and all of the town meeting stuff, there was truly not a moment.
Yeah. No, I think that's good prioritization myself. So.
All right, next on our agenda is circulation policy update.
So this I sent to you with yellow highlighting and to show what the changes were. And what we're asking to change is the loan period for adult books. For the new books and DVDs to be a 2-week loan with 1 renewal. They were a 2-week loan with 2 renewals, and which meant that someone could check out one of our new books and end up having it for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was really tying up our materials and not, providing fair access. So we wanted to change those. And that's just the new books and the new DVDs. The regular DVDs that are not new anymore would still be 2-week loan, 2 renewals. It's just the new materials. And then down lower, we wanted to take out the fee for a library card replacement is $1 because we're trying not to collect money and we went fine free. We would like to not fine people if they lose their library card, we'll just issue them a new one. And then under borrowing limits, 20 of these items can be audio-visual materials we wanted to add. That's a CW Mars policy. And I believe the system will stop someone when they try to check out their 21st AV item.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we can or should override. So we just wanted to make it clear in our policy that we don't limit the format of items checked out aside from the 50 item limit. And then of course, at the bottom of the date, just that we revised it this year.
Never get any pushback on breakout books having just one per cap card.
I don't think so.
No,
I haven't heard anything.
I think they're mostly just happy that they walk in and it's there.
Yeah. Just to be clear, that's 50 items at one time.
At one time, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I have no comments. Any discussion on this?
It all looked straightforward to me. So,
Makes sense. And this is an update, so we just need one vote. So I will take a motion on updating the circulation policy.
I move to
So-
update the circulation policy according to the document I just reviewed.
Excellent.
I'll second. I'll
Okay.
second.
Kate,
Kate.
okay.
Kate.
thank you. All right, let's take a vote. Karen,
Yes.
Deborah,
yes.
Ed,
Yeah,
Carolyn,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Dot,
Yes.
myself is a yes.
And
Excellent.
Who,
Ed, you made the motion, Kate seconded it.
I did not get everybody in that. That found Jen Key.
Dot.
And
Okay, that brings us almost an hour early to the trustee, director, assistant director of business. I think we all know what Maureen's been doing the last month, by the way.
Running the turkey trot.
Nothing. Yes. I had a new PR at the Turk Trot. My personal record.
Yay, congrats,
Yay.
awesome.
It wasn't fast. I didn't win.
But you did it.
You won for you.
Yes.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's a vote.
Tom and Ben started the race and only Ben made it back. I was like, what? Where's your father? He's like, he's had failed, he got hurt. I was like, oh no. And Tom just goes, run with the town. I was like, oh, great. Wonderful. Yeah, we picked him up on our way home. So get in the car, I'll run. Anybody have anything they would like to discuss?
When is our next meeting?
Oh, great question.
It is the week after Christmas,
The week after Christmas, so the 28th.
the 28th.
Anybody have, that is,
Unless you want to move it
Yeah.
earlier.
that is Wednesday, the 28th. It's a school vacation week.
Yeah,
William has a basketball tournament, I don't know. Apparently I'm coaching. Oh, no.
Oops.
That's hilarious.
If you would like to move it to the week before Christmas week, that would be the 14th.
First.
Well, it normally would fall on, oh yeah, it would.
We're
You
following.
could do it on the 21st.
How do you guys feel about that?
I think I'd rather have the 21st than the 28th.
Yeah,
I tend to really
Oh,
not think
yeah,
about things.
21st.
Yeah. that work for everybody?
Yes.
I'm sure it does.
December 21st instead of December 28th.
Sure.
Using your hand.
Go ahead, Carolyn, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
No, I'm waiting for the topic to be finished.
Oh, okay. So are we good on the 21st? Going once, going twice, we're moving it to the 21st,
Okay.
yay. Okay. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I just wanted to thank you for getting me the copy of the parking agreement between the town and the church, because I am pretty well assured that's going to come up at the town meeting. And as I explained, the reason I wanted it was because I wanted it, not because anybody else wanted it. Because we needed to be assured that it actually existed, because an unsigned contract is not a contract. So that's why I wanted to sign one. That's all. So thank you.
No problem. And it is good for us to know. It does officially have a date on it, by the way.
Yep.
And expires in 2026,
2015. So 20,
2025.
25.
Was it May, I believe?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's a 10-year agreement.
10-year agreement, it does expire.
You checked with them? Or you checked?
I did.
Yeah, if
Carolyn, did someone tell you they were bringing it up at town meeting?
I've heard rumblings from various people. You know, I like serve a different clientele and get around with other types of people than the rest of you do, because I'm more of an older population kind of person. So I'm just letting you know that it might come up. And so I kind of felt it was important that we know that it actually exists. And what it
In what capacity, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's an existing agreement with the town and the church.
Yep. Yep.
Renegotiating it, like, what capacity would they bring it up in, do you know?
I don't know. I just like to be prepared, you know?
No, I'm not saying anything
guess-
about that, I'm just curious what
Yeah.
people's feedback and questions are.
Well,
Because it's an
one
existing,
of the-
it's not,
One
it
of the-
wasn't created because of this project.
No, that's the whole point. It was in existence. So if there's an agreement, we should have the agreement in case somebody asks questions about it, which very well might.
Do people recognize that there is an agreement, or do people think that the library is just taking advantage?
No, they think that there's an agreement, but but they don't know if it's like a formal agreement or a handshake agreement. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yep, got it.
Like the church, through its good graces, is letting the library use it for patron and staff parking. So I just wanted to see what the agreement itself said, to see if it was limited to patron and staff parking, which it clearly is. You can't put anything else there. But that's something that should be known. You know what I mean? Like if it
Yeah.
gets asked, we should have that in hand.
Yep,
Mhm.
well, we do.
I
was
I
happy-
used to, years ago, I did trial work and I don't like surprises.
Yep. I was happy to know that the copy that we had all seen, that was the unsigned copy, is the same.
Right. It
as-
just took a
that's
year to
what
get
we all got.
signed.
This is the agreement, so it's good to know that it is the same as the actual signed one.
I
Right.
don't like surprises either. That's why I was asking, like,
Yeah.
why they were gonna.
Why,
bring
you
that
asked
up.
why I wanted it, and I wanted it because I wanted to know that it actually existed and was signed. Did you like my answer?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, it's one of those things that.
I mean, it was like
people have
9
talked
o'clock at
about
night.
agreement For years, but none of us have really seen it, so.
Yeah, well, that's why I was like, it was 9 o'clock at night when I'm answering the email, Maureen. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to know that it's really existing and not just, in a handshake or never got signed kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's all,
Because those things do happen.
And
they do.
some of the members of the church, I think, overstated our obligations under the agreement in discussions at a
Yeah.
point back before we knew what the agreement actually was.
yeah.
And you all know a lot of the church people are not happy with this project, right?
Oh, yeah.
They do not want those construction vehicles parked in their lot. So you might want to think of other places to put them because they don't want them there for 2 years.
Well, they wouldn't be there for 2 years.
They don't really want them there like at all. So,
Well,
you
there's
need-
really nowhere else to put them.
but they don't have to agree is where I'm going with this. So you guys got to think outside the box here because they don't have to agree because the church owns the land, not the town.
Yeah.
Right, but they also are going to be benefiting
No,
financially.
Maureen, they don't see it that way. They see it as an intrusion upon their church. So regardless of how great it would be to have a wonderful new library, they see it as infringing upon their patrons' usage of their church. So I'm just letting you know what the argument is, so you can think about how you want to respond. That's all.
We've heard
Okay.
that argument for some time, and
Yeah.
I personally was hoping that the town's negotiations with the church would resolve it before we got to town meeting, but that obviously.
Clearly not.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. That'll be an interesting plan B if it comes that way.
The
I-
only
is there-
other way to build this project is from Parkman Street. And the only way to do construction from Parkman Street is
Close
to
it off.
relocate power lines. Because you can't put
But they don't
workers and bucket trucks over power lines, so.
Okay. All I'm saying, Maureen, is they don't care because they
Yeah.
own the land, so they don't have to agree. That's all. So they don't care if there's no other way to build it. They don't want it in their church lot.
Got it.
So
That's fine. It's something that's gonna have to play out at town meeting.
it's
because
gonna have to be addressed.
Or after
We,
town
it
meeting.
will, we can only address it to a certain degree because it's not, this is where the library is in the middle of like a sibling quarrel. Like we
Right.
can't do, we are not the negotiating partner. It's the town
Right.
and the church. And so our project's caught in the middle of this tug of war. And so
Right.
that's gonna have to be.
I'm just letting you know, be prepared. That's all.
Well, we are. That's, facts haven't changed. That's been a problem the whole time, but it is the problem of us not being the negotiating partner of this.
Right.
We're just kind of sitting back in the middle and hearing both sides and everyone's not happy, but there's nothing, we have no power to do anything about that. It's not, even the original agreement's not an agreement between the church and the library. It's the town and the library.
Right.
Church in the town.
Town in the church.
Church in the town. Yes, church in the town. So we're just gonna have to let that one play out on town meeting floor.
And after, because the negotiations won't be, the town's not gonna negotiate on the town meeting floor.
Right.
Correct.
Like, the town would be the one to respond to that question. There's not much we can do about that.
Has anyone, sorry, has anyone heard if anyone who formed a citizen's petition, Nicole was one of them, plans on speaking? They don't have to.
Yeah.
Good.
They do, and I know that they plan on speaking at the advisory finance committee
Oh, that's great.
meeting, and they pushed out to ask for other people to show up
That's great.
that would be willing to speak at AFC. Any other business feedback, questions, comments? Okay. And I'm going to close that section out. Agenda items for next meeting. Do you know of any policies that we're looking at? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put on building project. Yeah.
A fair
Yeah,
prediction.
Recap, yeah.
Town meeting recap.
Town meeting.
Plan B as needed, yeah.
So, all right, December 21st, in-person meeting here. It is the holidays and we have worked really, really hard, regardless of the outcome that happens on December 10th. So I would like to propose that in that meeting, we kind of have a little celebration. If you guys all want, everyone bring something to share and we will celebrate the work we've done over the past year because it's been a lot.
I love that.
Does anyone have any
I love
objections
that.
to that?
Sounds good.
Let's end the year on a good note. So 7 PM here. Anything else?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Sounds good. Have someone second that?
I'll second.
Okay, let's start with the Zoom people. Kate,
Yes.
Dot,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Karen, and myself is a yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you.
Thank
tomorrow.
you.